The sun spilled its golden light over the cobblestone streets of Florence, painting everything in a soft, honeyed hue. Birds fluttered above the grand arches of the Santa Maria Novella train station, their wings catching the light like petals dancing in the breeze. Amid the soft hum of arriving and departing trains, people bustled with suitcases, tickets, and hurried goodbyes. But amidst the everyday rush, fate had quietly taken its seat, ready to unfold a story as timeless as the rolling hills of Tuscany. Stephen stood near platform 9, his leather duffel bag slung over one shoulder, his passport and ticket in hand. He was in his late 20s, a photographer from London traveling through Italy to capture its quiet beauty and forgotten corners. His wavy brown hair curled just slightly at the edges from the morning's humidity, and his deep blue eyes, sharp yet gentle, scanned the crowd with a quiet curiosity. He wasn't looking for anything in particular, just the next frame, the next story. Then he saw her. Sophia stood not far from him, a vision in a soft lavender dress that swayed gently with the breeze. Her chestnut brown hair was pinned loosely at the back, a few strands falling around her face like brushstrokes on a masterpiece. She was holding a map in one hand, her other resting lightly on the handle of a small mint-colored suitcase. Her brows furrowed ever so slightly as she tilted her head, clearly trying to figure something out. Stephen watched her for a moment longer than he probably should have. Then, mustering the courage that came with being a stranger in a foreign land, he stepped toward her. "Are you looking for the Rome train?" he asked, his voice kind but not overconfident. Sophia looked up, surprised, and then smiled. A smile that felt like spring sunshine. "Yes, actually. I think I might be in the wrong section." "You're in luck. I just asked someone. It's this platform. The 10:15. Her smile widened. "Grazie. That's a relief." Her accent was delicate, with a touch of the Mediterranean warmth. "You're not Italian," Stephen guessed. Sophia laughed softly. "No, I'm from Lisbon. I'm visiting Italy for the first time." He chuckled. "I'm from London. I think we're both tourists trying to look like we belong." And just like that, something shifted. The air between them became lighter, more open. They introduced themselves properly, exchanging names and a few casual details. Stephen was enchanted by the soft lilt in Sophia's voice, the way her eyes sparkled with interest when he mentioned his photography. "I love taking pictures too," she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out a tiny Polaroid camera. "But I'm more into capturing memories than art." "That's the same thing, really," Stephen said. "Art made of memories." The train began to rumble into the station, and they moved closer to the platform edge. With a laugh, Sophia said, "Let's sit together. That way I won't get lost again." Stephen grinned. "Deal." They found a window seat, side by side. The train whistled its announcement, and the journey began. As the train pulled out of Florence, the countryside bloomed around them, rolling green hills dotted with cypress trees, crumbling farmhouses that looked like they belonged in oil paintings, and vineyards that stretched like patchwork quilts across the land. Inside the carriage, time seemed to pause for a while. They talked about everything. Stephen's love for black and white photography, Sophia's job as a language teacher, the Italian food they couldn't stop indulging in, the books they were reading, the movies that made them cry. They shared laughter over stories of travel mishaps, quiet sighs over moments of vulnerability. Stephen showed her pictures from his camera. Sunsets over Venice, fishermen at dawn in Cinque Terre, an old couple dancing in a Naples square. Sophia showed him Polaroids of street musicians, espresso cups on tiny balconies, and selfies with strangers turned friends. I like the way you see the world, Sophia said at one point, her voice soft. I like the way you feel it, Stephen replied. When the train made a brief stop in a small town, they got out together to stretch. The platform was almost empty, the surrounding hills painted in shades of olive and gold. They walked a little, quietly enjoying the breeze. Then, out of nowhere, Sophia turned to him and asked, "Do you believe in soulmates?" Stephen paused, surprised but intrigued. I didn't. Not really. But I think meeting someone at the right time can feel like the universe is nudging you. Like this. She smiled, eyes gleaming. I was thinking the same thing. They boarded again, closer now. As the afternoon sun cast long golden shadows, Stephen rested his arm on the back of her seat. Sophia didn't move away. In fact, she leaned slightly toward him. By the time they reached Rome, the air between them was charged with something unspoken yet undeniable. I'm staying in Trastevere, Stephen said, almost hesitant. I am too, Sophia replied, a surprised smile spreading across her face. Maybe we'll see each other again, he offered. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the setting sun. I hope so. The taxi ride from Termini station to Trastevere was brief, but to Stephen and Sophia, it felt suspended in time. Neither of them had said much, but silence had become their soft companion, comfortable, meaningful, filled with glances and half-smiles that needed no translation. As the cobbled streets of Trastevere welcomed them with their charming chaos, streetlights began to flicker on, casting golden halos over ivy-covered buildings and cafes glowing with life. The scent of baked bread, simmering garlic, and fresh herbs filled the air, making the evening feel like a warm embrace. Stephen helped Sophia with her suitcase when the driver pulled over near Piazza Santa Maria. This is me, she said, pointing to a quaint guest house with red shutters and vines climbing up its walls. Mine's just 2 streets down, Stephen said, nodding toward the south. Looks like fate keeps us close. Sophia smiled, her eyes twinkling in the soft glow of the lamplight. Want to get dinner together? He grinned. Absolutely. They chose a little trattoria with only 6 tables and candles in Chianti bottles. The waiter, with a knowing smile, offered them a table under the vines outside, right beneath a string of fairy lights that made the whole street look like a painting. Over glasses of red wine and plates of gnocchi and capri salad, they let the city wrap around them like a lullaby. Music drifted from a nearby accordionist, his notes melting into the warm evening. Sophia leaned her elbow on the table, her chin resting in her palm as she watched Stephen. You're always observing, she said softly. Like you're storing the world inside you. He smiled. I guess I am. Every moment with you feels like something I don't want to forget. Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. You're making it hard not to fall for you. His heart thudded. He reached for her hand across the table, warm and delicate in his. Maybe don't fight it. Their hands stayed entwined for the rest of dinner. Afterward, they walked slowly through the streets, past old fountains and alleys echoing with the laughter of strangers. In the stillness of a quiet corner, near a forgotten archway with blooming jasmine, Stephen stopped. The world stilled. Sophia, he said, his voice a whisper meant just for her. She turned to him, the scent of jasmine in her hair, moonlight in her eyes. And then, slowly, gently, he kissed her. It was the kind of kiss that made time irrelevant. Soft, reverent, full of something deeper than just attraction, something that felt like recognition. When they finally pulled apart, her forehead rested against his. I wasn't expecting this, she whispered. Me neither, he said, his thumb brushing her cheek. "But I don't want it to end." She exhaled, almost laughing in disbelief. "We just met." "And yet," he murmured, "I feel like I've known you longer than I've known myself." They stood there for a while, hands still holding, breaths sensing, until the night deepened and they finally said goodnight. But neither of them slept much. The next few days passed like a dream painted in golden strokes. They explored Rome together like two wanderers discovering not just a city, but each other. At the Trevi Fountain, Sophia closed her eyes and tossed a coin over her shoulder. "What did you wish for?" Stephen asked. She looked at him, a playful smile curving her lips. "If I tell you, it won't come true." "I'll guess," he said. "You wished for more days like this." She grinned. "Clothes." They climbed the Spanish Steps hand in hand, took silly Polaroids at the Colosseum, and shared gelato under the towering ruins of the Forum. Stephen captured candid photos of Sophia laughing in the sun, her hair catching the light like fire. She took secret snapshots of him looking at her when he thought she wasn't watching. One afternoon, they rented a Vespa and zoomed along the cobbled streets like a scene out of a classic film, Sophia's arms wrapped around Stephen's waist, her laughter spilling like music into the wind. That night, they had dinner on a rooftop terrace with a view of St. Peter's Basilica. As candlelight flickered between them, Stephen reached into his bag and pulled out a small envelope. "What's this?" Sophia asked, curious. "Something I made for you." Inside were 3 prints of photos he had taken during their trip. One of her at the train station, one in Trastevere, and one at the Trevi Fountain. "They're beautiful," she whispered, touched. "I wanted to remember the moment I met the most beautiful girl in Italy." She blinked back emotion. "You're making it very hard not to fall in love with you." He smiled, eyes shining. "Then don't fight it." This time she kissed him. Under the stars, surrounded by history and possibility, they forgot the past, ignored the future, and fell deeper into a present that belonged only to them. A few days later, the city buzz of Rome began to feel too loud for the quiet rhythm Stephen and Sophia had created. On a whim, like so many beautiful things that had bloomed between them, Stephen suggested a trip to the Tuscan countryside. "I know a place," he said one morning as they sipped espresso in a sun-drenched cafe in Campo di Fiore. "A little town where the vineyards roll forever and the air smells like lavender and rain." Sophia leaned forward, her chin perched on her fingers. "That sounds like a dream." "Come with me," Stephen said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Let's go somewhere the world can't find us for a while." She smiled, her eyes holding his. "I'd go anywhere with you." By afternoon they were on another train, this one slower, older, more intimate. It rattled through golden fields and sleepy towns, past sunflower meadows and ancient olive groves. The air was thick with summer's warmth, the kind that made everything feel slow and saturated. Haven rested his head against the window, Sophia curled up beside him with her head on his shoulder. He watched the land roll by while gently tracing circles on the back of her hand. "Do you ever think," she murmured, eyes closed, "that we met in another life?" "All the time," he whispered. They arrived in Montepulciano just before sunset. The town was painted in rose gold light, with stone houses clinging to the hills like stories carved from time. Their inn sat at the edge of a vineyard, the rooms adorned with rustic charm and white linen curtains that danced in the breeze. That evening, they wandered the rows of grapevines, barefoot, wine glasses in hand. The world had gone quiet, only the sounds of crickets and the distant echo of a church bell filled the air. Sophia wore a flowing sundress, the hem brushing her calves like a whisper. Stephen couldn't stop looking at her. "You look like poetry," he said suddenly. She turned, surprised, blushing. "Poetry?" He stepped closer. "The kind that makes you ache and smile at the same time." She laughed softly, wrapping her arms around his neck. "You keep saying things like that, and I'll never want to leave." "Then don't." He kissed her again, slow and deep, as the sun dipped behind the hills. It wasn't the kind of kiss that promised forever. It was the kind that became forever. The next morning, rain swept softly through the hills. It wasn't harsh or hurried, just a gentle drizzle that made everything feel cleaner, quieter. Stephen and Sophia stayed indoors, wrapped in a thick wool blanket by the window. They watched the rain paint the vineyards with silver streaks and shared stories from their childhoods. Sophia talked about her grandmother who taught her how to make custard tarts and believe in signs from the universe. Stephen told her about his first camera, a hand-me-down from his father, and the day he fell in love with the idea of stopping time with a click. At one point, Sophia turned to him, her fingers tracing the lines of his palm. "What happens when we leave Italy?" she asked, barely louder than the rain. Stephen exhaled slowly, searching her eyes. "I don't know. I do know I don't want to go back to a world without you." Her voice trembled. "Neither do I." He kissed her forehead, then her lips. "Then maybe we don't." That night, the rain stopped, and the world smelled like earth and wildflowers. The vineyard owner, an old woman named Lucia, invited them to a small gathering in the wine cellar. Local music, warm food, and soft laughter echoed in the stone chamber. There, under low-hung lights and the scent of aging barrels, Stephen pulled Sophia into a slow dance. There was no one else on the makeshift dance floor, just the two of them moving gently in rhythm. "I never thought I'd fall for someone on a train," she whispered, resting her head on his chest. "I never thought I'd fall this hard, this fast," he murmured. "But here we are." They didn't say, "I love you" that night. They didn't need to. The way Stephen held her, the way Sophia's fingers lingered on his collar, said everything. The morning after the vineyard waltz, sunlight spilled through the gauzy curtains of their room. The scent of rosemary and warm bread drifted up from the kitchen below. Stephen awoke first, gazing at Sophia as she lay beside him. One hand tucked under her cheek, the other resting softly on his chest. He couldn't help but smile. It felt like waking in a dream made real. He slipped out of bed quietly and made his way downstairs to get coffee. Lucia greeted him with a knowing smile, handing him 2 mugs of strong Italian roast and a basket of fresh cornetti. "Your eyes are smiling," she said, her English thick with a Tuscan lilt. Stephen chuckled. "I guess they are." When he returned to the room, Sophia was still under the covers, blinking sleepily. He kissed her forehead and handed her the coffee. She took it gratefully. Heaven," she murmured. "But I'm convinced you were the real addiction." They spent the morning slow and tangled in laughter, kisses, and shared pastries. While Sophia was in the shower, Stephen opened a drawer to grab his sketchpad and paused. Inside, he found a folded piece of paper with Sophia's name written on it in looping, feminine handwriting. He hesitated, not wanting to invade her privacy, but something about it, perhaps the delicate way it was folded or the soft scent of lavender, compelled him. He didn't open it. He just held it for a moment. When Sophia came out, wrapped in a towel, she saw the letter in his hand and froze. "Oh," she said, her voice suddenly distant. "That's..." She sat on the bed, her expression unreadable. "It's from my fiancé." Stephen felt the world tilt slightly beneath him. I didn't know, he began. She looked down at her hands. It ended a few months ago. We were together for 3 years. He left. No warning. Just a letter. That one. I haven't had the courage to throw it away. Stephen placed the letter gently back in the drawer. You don't have to explain. I want to. She reached for his hand. When I met you, I didn't think I could feel anything again. I thought my heart was just done. But you, Stephen, you made me feel alive. Like I could start over. He squeezed her hand. And I want to be that start. She looked up, tears in her eyes. Not from sadness, but from the tenderness of the moment. You already are.